November 1989. A commercial airliner climbs into the Colombian sky carrying families, business travelers, and ordinary citizens. Minutes later, a bomb explodes inside the aircraft. The plane breaks apart in mid-air. No one survives. Just 9 days later, another massive explosion rocks the heart of Bogota. A truck packed with explosives detonates outside a government intelligence building, killing dozens and injuring hundreds. These weren't acts of war between nations. They were attacks ordered by one man, a drug lord so powerful that he believed he could force an entire country to surrender. His name was Pablo Escobar. And these two attacks would become some of the most infamous acts of terrorism in Latin American history. By the late 1980s, Pablo Escobar had become one of the richest criminals on earth. His Medellin cartel controlled much of the cocaine entering the United States. The money was unimaginable. Luxury estates, private aircraft, an army of gunmen. But Escobar had a problem. The Colombian government was beginning to cooperate more closely with the United States. And there was one policy he feared more than death itself: extradition. If captured and sent to an American prison, Escobar would lose everything. To stop that from happening, he launched a campaign of terror unlike anything Colombia had ever experienced. His message was simple: if you extradite us, we will make the country suffer.
On the morning of November 27th, 1989, Avianca Flight 203 prepared for departure from Bogota. There were students, parents, workers, people traveling for routine reasons. Nothing seemed unusual. The Boeing 727 took off normally. Then, a few minutes into the flight, disaster struck. An explosive device hidden aboard the aircraft detonated. The blast ripped through the plane. Witnesses on the ground watched debris fall from the sky. The aircraft crashed near the town of Soacha. All 107 people aboard were killed. Several people on the ground also died. The nation was horrified. But what made the tragedy even more shocking was the reason behind it. Investigators later concluded that the bombing had been intended to assassinate presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galan's successor, Cesar Gaviria. Escobar believed Gaviria was aboard. He wasn't. A last-minute change of plans had kept him off the flight. The intended target survived. More than 100 innocent people died instead. The bombing sent shockwaves around the world. Many Colombians realized that the conflict had entered a terrifying new phase. Escobar was no longer targeting only politicians, judges, or police officers. Now ordinary civilians were dying. Families mourned loved ones who had simply boarded a commercial flight. Public outrage exploded. But Escobar wasn't finished. In fact, an even larger attack was only days away.
December 6th, 1989. Bogota's morning rush hour. Thousands of people filled the streets around the headquarters of Colombia's intelligence agency, known as the DAS. Parked nearby was a truck. To passers-by, it appeared ordinary. But hidden inside was an enormous quantity of explosives. Then came the detonation. The blast was catastrophic. Windows shattered across multiple city blocks. Vehicles were hurled through the air. Buildings shook as if an earthquake had struck. People were buried beneath rubble. The intended target was Miguel Alfredo Maza Marquez, the head of the intelligence agency and one of Escobar's most determined enemies. He survived. Many others did not. More than 60 people were killed. Hundreds were injured. The explosion left scenes of devastation that resembled a war zone. Escobar believed terror would force the government to negotiate. Instead, it produced the opposite effect. The attacks united political rivals. They strengthened public support for the fight against the Medellin cartel.
Security forces intensified their pursuit. International cooperation increased, and more resources than ever were devoted to hunting Escobar. The bombings that were meant to protect him ultimately helped create the coalition that would bring him down. The bombing of Avianca Flight 203 and the destruction of the DAS headquarters remain among the darkest chapters in Colombian history. Together, they claimed the lives of more than 100 people and left countless families shattered. They also revealed the dangerous reality of Pablo Escobar's power. A man who had become so desperate to avoid capture that he was willing to attack airplanes, government institutions, and civilians.
But history delivered an outcome he never expected. The campaign of terror that was supposed to save his empire instead accelerated its destruction. And 4 years later, the most feared drug lord in the world would be dead. The bombs shook Colombia, but they also marked the beginning of the end for Pablo Escobar. If you want to see more tales of crimes, subscribe and hit the like button so you don't lose the next videos. Peace out.